This is Tom Colley for Through the Ropes Boxing. Delighted to be joined by super welterweight contender Lewis the Lionheart Syrett. Lewis, how you doing, mate?
Yeah, I'm all good, thanks, mate. How you been?
Yeah, not too bad, mate. I mean, what's life been like for you in lockdown, obviously, with training, not being able to go to the gym, that sort of thing?
No, it's same as most people. It's been very boring more than anything, but it's just frustrating because just like sort of pushing on with boxing. I was 1 or 2 fights away from what I want to do, the southern area, and then it's all come to a halt. So
Yeah,
just
frustrating.
Same as everyone now, just a waiting game.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, just sort of reflecting on your career so far, obviously you made your debut in 2017, stopping Chikaleski by knockout. I mean, describe how that felt for you when you making your pro debut.
Yeah, that was unreal. It's one of the best. I don't think anything. I'm going to struggle to match that at the minute because first of all, didn't really expect to go pro. I didn't have a great amateur career. I had a lot of fights, but it was only sort of half and half records.
Yeah.
It didn't really occur to me for ages, and then I didn't even get a lot of knockouts either amateurs. I think I only stopped in 50 fights. I think I only stopped one person. So to go and do that on my debut was a great moment.
Yeah, sure, it was brilliant. Do you think that obviously being that it was your pro debut, and I'm sure you had a lot of fans there, I know you're well supported, it gave you that extra push to sort of push for the stoppage victory?
Yeah, I think it did. It definitely helped. I mean, it is hard to like ignore the fans when they're getting behind you and getting going. It does push you on a bit more. And I trained us just because it was the debut as well. I think that it made me push that extra bit harder in training as well.
Yeah, sure. I mean, obviously, you mentioned that you never intended to turn over pro. I know you were 28 when you turned over. What was it that sort of finally made you push to go into the pro ranks?
It was a combination. A lot of it was the frustration of a lot of the judging in the amateurs. I mean, I went to Haringey Box Cup the third time I went there. The second time I went, I got robbed bad.
Right.
And I thought, right, it happens.
It happens.
And I said, I'm in it again. And then I went in it again and the same thing happened. And I thought, Joe, I'm sick of this now. And then I was just sparring Darryl Williams.
Yeah.
And he said to me, why don't you turn over? And I said, oh, no, I'm too old. I'm not. He said, no, you might as well. And then I thought, well, if he thinks I've got enough to turn over, then I thought I'd give it a go. And it's the best thing I've done, really.
Nice one. And am I right in saying you ran the London Marathon after your pro debut?
Yeah. Yeah, the next morning.
Nuts, isn't it?
What possessed you to do that? Sorry?
What possessed you to want to do that after a pro debut?
It was bad timing, really. I mean, I'd signed up to the marathon, and then when Steve Goodwin told me my debut, he said it was the day before, and I thought, I can't turn him down. I can't say no. So I just had to get on with it. But you couldn't have done it the other way around. I was in bits after that.
No. Well, you're here to tell the tale, so fair play to you for doing that. I mean, obviously, you touched on it. You said you had 50 odd amateur fights. I mean, how having that amateur pedigree behind you, how much do you think that puts you in good stead for the pro ranks?
Yeah, I think it's you do get the odd exception of people that have done well in the pros without much amateur background, but I think there's not that many. I think you do need it, really. I mean, unless you're like exceptional or there's the few that get through the mold, but it does. I think I'd suggest to anyone to do it before they turned over, really.
Absolutely.
Especially nowadays, where there's all these YouTubers and that just turning
just trying to make a quick buck, aren't they? I suppose you can't knock them for it, but yeah, they don't quite understand the skill involved in boxing, as opposed to like a YouTuber having a go fighting someone like Pacquiao or Mayweather who's been doing it their whole life. It's mad. Look in and say I could do that, but it's a bit different when you're in there.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. So in 2019, obviously, you fought on the Matchroom show, the undercard of the Edwards Moreno world title fight. Describe how that was for you, obviously, going onto that bigger stage.
That was another experience. It's going to be hard to top. Like between the debut and that, I think they're probably two highlights, not only my boxing, but of my life so far, really. I enjoyed every minute of it. It was surreal. Like watching it on the telly, you never really imagine yourself doing it. But yeah, I loved every minute of it.
It was brilliant. I was there in the Copper Box Arena. It was buzzing that night. And obviously you came through with a victory, which was great as well. Following on from that, obviously you entered into the Ultimate Boxer tournament. Describe what that was like when you got the call to go into that and how you prepared for that. Because I know you came down from middleweight to fight a super welterweight for that tournament, didn't you?
Yeah. I did. Well, I wanted to go in the middleweight one, but it didn't come around. And then Steve Goodwin, he rang me up and said, "I've managed to get you into the super welterweight one." So I've never even thought of going down to that weight before, because amateurs I box at light heavy. So cutting to middleweight was a lot for me. You know? Yeah, it's 81, and then in pros is a bit lighter still. So that was down to 72 and a half, and then I think the Ultimate Boxer was at 71, and I didn't think I'd ever make that. But when you get that opportunity, I thought, well, I've got to make it. I don't care how I'm doing. I've got to
just pass it up. Yeah. How did you feel fighting at that weight? Is that a weight you sort of stick at going forward, or do you think you're
probably not? I think especially with the lockdown going, I think I'll struggle to get back down that light again. So I think when it does resume, I'll stay at middleweight. I think.
You think that's the best weight for you going forward?
Yeah, I'm not short. I'm not small for a middleweight. So I think if I am cutting to 71, 70, then I'm only stripping off muscle really. So I think I'm better off staying at middleweight.
Yeah. Now, you suffered your first professional defeat to Sean Robinson in the tournament, a very close, cagey fight. I mean, how did you sort of deal with that from a mental and physical perspective to then obviously bounce back the way you did and win your next bout 2 months later?
Yeah, I think it was kind of expected that I was going to get the losing. I mean, Sean he had the Southern Area title at the time, and he was natural at that weight, and
obviously it was just probably had
it was a bad draw. Like, you've got to beat everyone on the night, but I thought it was probably the worst. Probably worse I could have got him or Donnelly.
Favourites for the competition, but it's such early doors.
Yeah, so I mean, if I had have beaten Sean, I would have got Donnelly next anyway. So it was a bit of a tough draw, but he just outboxed me. He was very good on his feet, and every time I got him trapped, even like I think Malinaji, who was commentating, he said, "Oh, he's done another Houdini act." As he got out of the corner, he was just a very smart boxer. So there's no shame in losing to Sean.
Absolutely not. And I mean, obviously, you bounced back. You won your next fight a couple of months later. Then, obviously, 2020, coronavirus came. It's been a frustrating year for everyone. You weren't able to get out in 2020. I mean, what have you been doing? Have you been keeping yourself fit, fight ready, or?
I have. I mean, not the training that I'd like to be doing. I'd like to be getting down the gym more, but with these restrictions in place, I've not been able to at the minute, because where I haven't boxed for so long, my license is actually expired. So I've got to, before I go back down the gym, I've got to get that back sorted again. But I've been keeping fit at home. I've been training every day in January. I'm doing running one night, boxing the next night, and then I've been training every day. So that's keeping me busy.
Ticking over.
Yeah, it's the same. Unless you're one of these lucky people that's on like with Matchroom or Frank Rowan, that they're getting them on these behind closed doors shows. I mean, it's just
hard times.
Sort of training for nothing really until we get a date.
So, I mean, what does 2021 hold for you in an ideal world with your career? What would you be aiming for in an ideal world, obviously, given that everything permits with COVID?
Ideal for me, probably I'd like to have one like a warm-up fight.
Yeah.
Because it's been already over a year since I've been out.
Yeah.
And then box for the Southern Area title. That would be the ideal world for me, because
yeah.
I mean, I'm not getting any younger. I turned over quite late, so that's my goal, is to get the Southern Area. So the sooner I can box for that, the better for me.
Brilliant. Yeah, and obviously, you know, all goodwill permitting, you know, and you get the Southern Area title. How far do your aspirations go in the sport? I mean, would you look at potentially English, even British titles? You know, if your career goes to plan.
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to. I've surprised myself so far, but I'd like to think. But I think not quite at that level yet. But you never know. We'll have to see what happens. But
yeah, sure. And just before I let you go, Lewis, as well, just to touch on some people in your division, pound for pound stars. Obviously, you've got Terence Crawford and Errol Spence Jr. being touted for a potential matchup this year. What are your thoughts on that? If that gets made, how do you see that one going?
Oh, it'd be such a good fight. I've always favoured towards Errol Spence with that one. I just think he's a freak. I don't know how he makes welterweight. He's so big and strong for that weight. I mean, I know everyone says Crawford's he's special, but I just think Errol Spence is too big for him, I think.
Yeah. I mean, we saw what he did to Kell Brook. I know that Kell Brook was obviously coming off the back of that loss to Golovkin. There was no shame in that, stepping up the weights that he did.
Yeah.
Brook was obviously a very special fighter at welter, and I think that, you know, the way he beat Brook in the end was pretty impressive. The other one as well, it's been, I don't know if you've heard about it, potentially Manny Pacquiao fighting Ryan Garcia.
Yeah.
How would you see that one going? What do you think of that? Obviously 20 years difference in age there.
Yeah. It pains me to say it, because I love Pacquiao. He's been my idol growing up, but I think the age is too much. After watching him against Luke Campbell, he's so quick and he's better than I gave him credit for. And I just think the 20-year age gap is just, and he hasn't boxed for a long time. I think it's just going to be a bit too much for Pacquiao, unfortunately.
Yeah. I mean, Pacquiao is a legend, isn't he? But I suppose it's Father Time catches up with all of us, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Lewis, Syrett, thanks very much for speaking to Through the Ropes Boxing. Hope to catch up with you soon, and best of luck in 2021.
That's brilliant. Thanks very much, mate. Good to speak to you.
Take care.